Chapter 6. Chapter 5 was fucking long, even with my little breaks. We're going all the way. Like, that's it. We're going all the way. Ends up being the best place for me. Right here. There you go. And when it dims, it's actually perfect when it dims. Now that I think about it, I'm back. I'm also back. So sorry, I'm gonna back a bit. Sorry for keeping everybody. Well, I didn't think it was gonna go 4 hours. If I knew it was gonna, I thought it was gonna go 3. So if I knew if it was gonna go 3, I was like, okay, then it'll be fine. I didn't know it was gonna go 4. So, you know, but we had to. Really had to. I want to first say, talk about it. This is gonna be probably emotional because I'm a baby. I can't help it. So I'm sorry. I'm probably gonna say some emotional shit. So I'm sorry in advance. I also don't know how long I'm gonna. So if you guys need to crash out now, be my guest. I understand. Hopefully I don't stay too long. For better or for worse, this was a year and a half in the making. For better or for worse. And kind of a lot happened in a year and a half for me. But you know, even then, like, what basically started as me trying to find a game to sort of just play on Access's channel and just routinely visit it, and I was like, before I started playing on Enchanté, I had kind of a really I had like a pretty it was a pretty like volatile schedule. I would constantly like I'd constantly basically just come up with stuff to stream, and I was like, at some point I was like, yeah, let's do a full playthrough for Café Enchanté. If you recall, it basically took me about like 8 months on the Access stream to get through just the common route. Realize how much of a mistake that was later on, but that's a different entirely. Since then, I've played about 4 or 5 otome games. I've only played 2 through completion so far, and I'm itching my way towards 3 with the variable barricade, and hopefully it'll be 4 before 1926. Played through quite a few. I played a bit of them, and I still consider myself like a fledgling in the genre, for sure. Still brand new. I still haven't finished as many games as I would even like, but it's been a pretty fun ride. Yeah, it's just been like this thing. It's been like, that's the thing, is like Enchanté has just been in my life for that year and a half, you know? It's just been in my life. And now, not that it's going to be gone, but I don't have like a thing to do with the game anymore. I don't know how many times I've ever thought that I finished a game and I said, not only do I want a sequel, but I also want a prequel. I want the prequel, which goes over So On, and I want the sequel, which will go over Karya. And then the fan disc will be for Kotane. But you know, a year and a half of playing a game, even if it's just like weird and sporadic and it's not necessarily like one-to-one. I certainly had this game in my mind very heavily. And now it's now we're moving on. Kind of feels weird, not gonna lie. Because this all of my enjoyment of otome games almost entirely started with my my enjoyment of otome games almost entirely started with my connection to Kotane. Like, almost entirely. Because I had simultaneously gone through a lot of the things that Kotane had been going through in the story at that exact same moment. Of going into a job that you hate and treats you like shit and makes your life feel awful, and you kind of just sit in a sort of malaise of what you wanted to do with your life, and then this random thing just springs up and it kind of just changes a lot. And you kind of suck at the job as you start, and you work up and you figure things out as you go along. You get regulars. And then it just like all works out, you know? Even if it's for a little bit, it all works out. And not to say that, like, you know, that I haven't had my troubles in that time. Most certainly have. But I can say without a doubt that this game was a very huge bright spot last year and a half of my life. And led to a lot of good. It led to a lot of good, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I really don't know what. I had a bunch of things to say for sure. I kind of lost it all. But me, really, I think the by far the most crazy thing about what has transpired in the year and a half is the fact that I had all of you. I have no clue why a bunch of people came and watched me play a game for a year and a half. And it made it a lot of fun. It made it so much fun. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Like it's I don't expect, like, especially the two times I really didn't expect anything was when I first said I was going to do Enchanté streams on my own. I really didn't expect anything then. And then after I kind of went on hiatus, or I would like to, holy fuck, like I was just like, and like right before Misyr Route too, I felt like such a fucking I felt like such a fucking and to be like frank, I have like nothing else to say than like what's actually like just happening in my brain right now. Like for the most part, I entirely expected to play every one of these games on my own and just talk and laugh, and most of what I wanted to do as a person who streamed otomes is just very simply put, show that there is more to the game than just it being a game for a god. Rather that I went into a story about a girl who had been through some shit with life and how the general world treats you and how much that hurts and how much that sort of kills your enjoyment of living, and then find something that works for them and it just changes everything. Like at that point I was like, oh, like that doesn't have to do anything with whether you're a girl or a guy or don't identify with either. Like it is completely a genderless feeling. That is a feeling that is created from the fact of life. And that's it. That should be the shattering moment of that expectation. Not to say that it's not directed towards girls and women. It is. It is, for sure. Like, and I want it to be. I don't want it to be geared towards a neutral audience. I want it to be girls. But I want it to see, what I want is for everybody else on the other side come around like I did and say, despite that, there is an incredible value from telling these from another perspective. And even if I don't relate to every feeling that characters go through every feeling that protagonists go through, and if I cannot immediately maybe recognize the decisions and why things happen and stuff like that, doesn't matter. Just seeing it from that perspective is, yeah, it's just about the experience. Whether you can relate to it is beneficial, but have to know what it is to begin with. So, I mean, you know, I sit here as like a big dumb fan of shoujo crap, and this follows suit for sure. And I did want to at some point talk about why. Because I think that at least outside of the word shoujo doesn't necessarily have to do much with a girl's audience. It's actually just more about how characters interact. Like, to me, in the end, like, the shoujo genre ended up just being what's important. Like, what's important about this story? And you can, if you say adventure, then you can say, okay, what's important about it is adventure. That's pretty easy. Or sports, right? But shoujo is a little bit more, like, girls aren't the most important part of shoujo. In a maybe a little bit reductive, but a very broad sense, shoujo is for character. And that's kind of the thing I want to write a little bit more upon before I start talking about it. But that was my first sort of like thought about it. But yeah. As a like small review for Enchanté, what a really fun and crazy setting to set a story about love. You know? It is such a wild setting to create for what would eventually happen in it's such a wild setting for typical romance. Not typical. It's such a wild setting for a romance. No. Here's Kotane, an incredibly normal character who's dealing with something that every like many people deal with before her. And she is thrusted in just a world where everything looks normal, but is not. And that is such a core fundamental of the whole story, is that this is a very normal situation, except for any time something happened. Then it is just it goes off the wall and crazy. And that's really fun. The story, many of the routes, excluding the last one, kind of maybe felt that they kind of went in the same progression of going a little bit higher, like sort of putting together what the love interest would be, introducing a problem, reaching its climax, and then the resolution. Misyru's story probably did that, but accelerated it and then did it 3 times. Twice. Did it twice. But other than that, I would think that like the story overall is like, you really like. I am really impressed with how much effort they put into that final route. Because it was a route that not only acknowledged the fact that you'd gone through every route previously before it as a locked route. It was not only a route that hinted itself from the very beginning. In the very first of the common route, very first run through the common route, and after you finished every single route. But rather, it also didn't say that your time to get to the final route was in vain. It was in vain. As opposed to, let's say, the other game that I had completed, which is Olympia Soiree, which takes into consideration the things that happened before it, but could ultimately be without it. That was impossible with Misyru's route. Misyru's route had to have been the last one, because it needed 4 things to be played before it. And you needed to understand why all of these characters were the way that they were. Maybe Rindo's less so, but that's a different. Maybe Rindo's, but still. Yeah, and the payoff was fantastic. You feel like, as a player, that you went through the entire story with everybody, and it was worth it. That's great. Like, I think that's incredible. Make your players feel like going through every route is worth it. Don't make your players feel like you have to drag through till you get to the locked route. Make them feel like that once they get to the final route, they're like, it's here, not finally. That is just fantastic. Like, that's great. That's great writing. Not to also mention that the story had consistently thought about what the people playing it would be thinking, and then addressing those almost immediately. And constantly being like, what is the person thinking when they read this? What should be the response and story? And how can we combine those things in a way that also informs the reader or the player that they are being affirmed by the story's questions that get brought up, and that they are still progressing the story in a way that makes it so that it makes sense. Hey Donda, thank you for stopping by. I didn't get to say this to you personally yourself, but you were also around for so much of what I had played through Café Enchanté. So, and through all of like the wonderful things that this gave me, whether it be stream or the wonderful moments, the laughs, any of that, like definitely that you, Donda, were a part of it. So thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time that you spent with me. I said all of that earlier, but the difference was that I cried. Sorry, I can't do that again. Yeah. I don't know. I thought I had a lot more to say about it as I was going along, but now I don't have as much to say. Maybe tired from streaming so long. I don't usually stream this long. Hey, Showball. Hey, thanks for coming through at all and playing Enchanté with me. That was it's been a really fun time. I appreciate you coming through and sharing all of the really fun moments we had together. So, yeah. What was my favorite route? By far, Mishiru's. But I shouldn't say by far. I should say without a doubt. Who is also just a fucking great character. Yeah, Misyr and Il are both just wonderful, wonderful characters. I maybe lament a little bit that I felt like maybe Rindo's didn't hit me as hard as it should have. It had some really, truly gut-wrenching moments. But I think playing Il's first was such a disservice to Canis and Rindo's. Felt like they paled in comparison in stakes. That'd probably be my one big mistake. But that was the way that the cards were dealt. So it's okay. I'm okay with it. I also think Il introduced the most interesting characters. The Angels, I think Soltis and Epilogi are both such good characters that it made you really, really like the story altogether. And the fact that Soltis was there the entire time, that helps quite a bit. Yeah. And music is great. Like I said, there's a very likely chance that that you'll hear this track quite often. From now on. Because we've been listening to it for like 25 minutes, and I only thought about that right now. I love this track. Music is great, and it's not the same. Emotional music from the battle music, from the heartwarming sort of slow point music, you know, all of the different types of music that were in this game all fit the moments that they were very well, and really impressive. Get an entire soundtrack that is not only varied to this degree, but also hits every moment as well as it does. When you get so like, and as an overall thing, you don't really get to go this ham on romance in general. You think about the romance genre as a basis, for the most part, you really either stick around one theme or one sort of differentiating aspect about the world, or none at all. And it becomes a very normal, regular setting, which is fine, because a lot of the times that's not the part that matters. But with Enchanté, they created such a crazy, wide world, and weren't afraid to just go into every one of these worlds and all of the different rules that every one of them follow, and then create stories within all of these routes or in these worlds, and still make you feel like all of them mattered. Yeah, it's just like so much ends up happening that at some point, maybe and maybe this is the reason why it doesn't happen as often, like at some points you essentially forget that this is about the romance. A lot of the times this is about like saving somebody, or discovering that part of what happened, or like discovering why the world is the way that it is. A lot of that stuff became really important too. And when the romance aspect was not sacrificed for the world, it's really fucking nice, you know? It's really nice. Yeah, you could say it's like high action, high stakes, but it's really nice that the journey is not, it does not replace the romance, but it is a part of it. Because don't get me wrong, as much as I fucking love just having two characters who like end up liking each other and fall in love and move, like go along, like I love that shit. As much as I love that, having this sort of great bombastic experience that follows a journey but does not sacrifice the characters on the way is really a real treat, I think. And I think that's like, despite Olympia's problems, I think that's why I liked Olympia so much as well, is because although it's not as it's not at such a large scale, but the progression of the story was never sacrificed by the character. It was always the characters are along with the story as you go along, and sometimes it wasn't about the romance, but the characters always kept it in mind. So, like, I really wish, like, more... I really wish, like, more romance would be written like this. I really wish that more romance was written around the characters. The trials and the tribulations of the characters is not necessarily have to do around romance. Because it doesn't always need to be. You can even tie the romance into the trials and have the trials be much bigger than the romance itself. Like, sort of like Misyr Route. Essentially, the story's problems and its tribulations were almost entirely created from Noah and his romantic interest. But the situation's so much bigger than that. And that makes sense. And that's great. Just give me more of that shit. It's hard to write. I can see that argument, Catcracker, for sure. I can see that argument. I think at some points, like, it did. But that balance creates... Even if, let's say, that the romance is not the first and the foremost highlight at all times within a story, cannot argue that it will inevitably create a bunch of different stories that wouldn't have been able to exist before it. And sometimes it is interesting enough to mash two ideas together to create something that's never happened before, even if you can derive them from two separate things. You add, flame beast guy plus romance plus boom, story. The difference is, actually, Barry, that's a good point. The difference is between the payoff of, let's say, a more regular story. I'm just going to bring up Horimiya because I haven't done it in a month. And Enchanté, let's say. The difference between the payoffs is that a story like Horimiya is payoff is essentially the same place that Enchanté wanted to go. But the difference is that, like, with Horimiya, it was just one route. Or not one route. It was one thing that needed to get resolved. It is the romance aspect of both characters. How to resolve that to come to one thing, right? Even if they have their two own separate, like, things about themselves, like maybe both characters have something that they have to get over in order to get to that point where they can love each other. That's fine. But at the end, it comes to one single resolution. In Enchanté, a single resolution would not be enough. A single resolution would mean either the world is fine or the romance is fine. And in fact, the stake was so high in Enchanté that the world being fine and not the romance is a bad thing. Because there's no love in this world that gets saved. And the opposite is true as well. They might love each other, but if there's no world to do it in, it doesn't matter. So both of these situations needed to get resolved in order for that happy end. That will inevitably create a bunch of really, really stories for experience. That's why I want more. That's why otome games are so cool. Because otome games understand that they're games. And because they're games and of that genre of media, they pull from other video games. Like Xenogear or the Xenosaga. And they're okay with doing that. because it is of the same genre. And so because games are so willing to be bombastic and exciting and super fun and create great worlds and have you get immersed in them, otome games will allow you to do all of those things. Get immersed in a world. Understand that characters are supposed to either help her introduce, move on, some sort of thing, provide a story, and then move on. You go and approach that. You can get a random island that may or may not be off the coast of Japan, and make an entirely different world within that set island, and then push it like that. And that's a video game. And it's the same thing for something like Café Enchanté, where you create this world and you create all of the things within it and make it interesting to dive into. Because yes, that's the difference. The difference is that with video games, you are approaching a different world. You're approaching a different reality. At least story-driven. I shouldn't say that for something like multiplayer games or stuff like that. There's different ways to get immersed in that for different reasons. But that's why they're video games. That's why they're not just books. That's why they're not just text. You could have, like, yes. You would be correct in the sense that you could recreate a game like Café Enchanté with the music, with the text, with the CGs, with the decision making, by just putting them on the screen for you, one after another like this, and just having you read them off like that. For sure. And then the CG would pop up when it happens, like maybe in the margins. But it would not be the immersion that an otome game is normally. Exactly. Visual novels are that bridge. Visual novels allow you to see the world, so you don't have to think about it yourself. It allows you to experience sort of the interactions that characters have with each other, so it doesn't have to be written. And so what you get is just a lot of writing about a lot of writing that is almost entirely speech and exposition. And yeah, you know, we joke about the exposition parts because they're kind of like, funny exposition, but you know, some parts where if you want to info dump, it's better than just to have a character say it for 2. But at the same time, books and sort of just reading things off like a text box or something like that needs to put so much into your brain in order to understand the position that you have to write location setting, you have to write motions and facial expressions and situation, and all of that has to be written. When that can be shown instead of written, then what's left is just the interaction. Let's sort of go across. Just see these characters interact with one. So there's other parts like, you know, the game tells you what they think and stuff like that, obviously. But it makes it much more of a, you're not like, you know, reading, they approach a shabby cafe that has really nice wooden interior. You're not reading that, and then once you get out of that, you're like, I understand that. And then you come into it, and then you meet shit, right? You're already seeing that, and you walk into it. Let me see more of that in every genre, though. Let me see more of that stuff and take advantage of it, right? Just take advantage of this. Take advantage of the concept that I have the ability to actively understand the situation just by looking. I kind of went off cuff what I was trying to say normally, or what I was trying to say before. But basically what I was trying to say is I really hope that the other otome games and other stories in general really take advantage of their medium and approach having stories and romance that are not just about the romance, but involve the romance. And almost any, even in normal situations in your day-to-day life, you might like someone, or you might be or have a significant other. But very rarely does that become a thing that you are only doing. You might think about them a lot. That doesn't stop you from going to work, getting to eat, dealing with any of the other bullshit that you have in life. And that's all from a normal perspective. Yeah. So, yeah. Suppose that's all of it. Probably had more to say. Don't know. So I'll let you guys go. I don't know what I'm doing next week, but playing Arknight. If you guys want to come through that, talk about whatever happens. Arknights. Play Arknight. Talk about it. Hachi, you're incredible. Thanks for coming and hitting these streams up despite being so. You're the best. Take it easy. Yeah, I know I kept you guys for much longer. I wouldn't be streaming this long if I didn't feel like I was called for the. So, yeah, I'll stream Arknights tomorrow because it's an event. It's a good event. I'll come up with something for two. I think Hatsuful Boyfriend might be the one to do it, but I haven't fully decided on. Got a lot of stuff. We'll come up with something. I'll let you guys all go. Thank you, everybody. What a wonderful year and a half I got to share with you guys. Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe the trashiest ending to. You guys are all incredibly wonderful. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Hopefully. Take it easy.